Welcome to the What's Next podcast. Tonight's episode is sponsored by 519 Clothing Company with an initiative to support mental health, helping teens and young adults dealing with mood and anxiety symptoms. On this episode, we sit down in the studio with Sharon and her daughter Meredith and chat about Meredith's journey dealing with her past and the support of her mother. So if you're ready, buckle up and let's go. Welcome to the What's Next podcast. I'm Mike Hectus, your co-host with my good buddy
Brian Stevens.
Brian Stevens, welcome.
I think
buddy.
that's my name.
There you go. Yeah. Good to have you here, buddy.
I wrote it down.
I love this because when we get people in the studio, they always look at us, go, when are we going live? When are we going live? We just start rolling. And then Steve and Ryan, happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday.
Who knows when this podcast will be? We probably said happy birthday to him 20 times now. Yeah. Doesn't matter. We have with us today Sharon and Meredith. How are you guys?
We're great, thank you. Wonderful, pumped up.
There you go. There you go. Now remember, we're just gonna have a conversation. This is not about how do I look? Okay, there's cameras everywhere, there's lights everywhere, but we just want to have a conversation. Brian and I have been doing this. We started this back in March, and I think we just had the time of our life doing it, and I think more than anything, it's helped us free ourselves from our past and our stories that helped us break down the walls that held us back, and it was really cool that we thought maybe one or two people, maybe Stephen will listen to it. He's producing it. He'll listen. That'll be it. That'll be cool. We'll listen to each other, and we've had a great following. I mean, it's in the thousands of people following our podcast now, which is really cool.
And the premise for the show is just simply to hear people's stories. Because everybody's got a unique story, a different story, a similar story, but everybody's got a story. Mm-hmm. And just when you think that you're tired of telling your story or that nobody wants to listen to your story, you couldn't be more wrong.
There's always somebody listening.
Always.
Well, yeah. I think that when I look at the two of you, because I haven't seen you both live for a while, it brings me back to when the universe bumped us into each other, which was at the very beginning of the end of that story and the beginning of my new story and my family's new story. And I think that all happened for a reason.
It's funny. And we talk about that because we met, Sharon and I met, I don't even know if you know Brian, but Sharon and I met at a cast or a filming for Chef D on CHCH TV 11. We were sitting in the back of his place there, and we were part of the audience as they were, and Sharon was at one table. I was sitting with some of his neighbors, and it was just that, we talked about with Cavell and a number of people on our show is there's this instant energy that you get from somebody, and you came over and introduced yourself, and all of a sudden, because I had my Give Some hoodie on, and we got talking about what's the Give Some, and we talked about the charity and how we love to give back. And we had this instant connection, and it was kind of cool. So then it just started conversation, and I don't even know where it went from there. But then we started to start a Stand Strong program and things like that. And
no, but I think what I'm getting at is I don't think you realize how integral me meeting you was in my life in that time, because I was leaving a bad situation with no self-esteem, no confidence, no direction, and I met you, and then you brought me into your fold and introduced me to the most wonderful people who gave me and all my children a new way of thinking, a new perspective, and a new, I don't know, everything changed after I met you guys. Yeah. I'm not trying to boost you. I'm just saying that.
I was going to say, Sharon, just stop. He's going to fall off the chair soon and go, no. But again, beautiful words. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, there was that energy there, though, that kind of connected. Oh, okay, what are we doing here? Where are you from? And things like that. But it's we're drawn together for a reason. Yeah, well, and it was, the timing was perfect. Like you said, it was crazy how it all everything, the stars align, as we say.
Well, it's just like when we had Cavell on the show, and he talked about just understanding energy with people. Mm-hmm. And when the energy's right, the energy's right. Mm-hmm. And it just organically goes where it's going to go. Yeah. And when you don't understand the energy, or you're, primarily if you're not understanding the energy, that's when Cavell said maybe it's time just to walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that the problem with a lot of our peers in society is that they haven't spent the time to be introspective enough to even understand their own feelings, to know that they're feeling energy or they're feeling instinct and their gut,
100%.
right? So that's why we all are in bad energy situations.
Yes. Yeah. And you were talking to it prior to us officially going live here, that sometimes you don't even understand that. You don't understand that that's not a good situation that you're involved with, or that that you need to get out of that.
So the word we use, it's normal.
Yeah.
I think that's normal.
You normalize that situation, and so I get it 100%.
Well, and to talk, like Brian had mentioned, the whole idea is I wanted to have you guys here because everybody's, like I said, has got a story and it connects us somewhere. And I truly believe there's always one person out there listening. And it's crazy how this podcast has expanded the way it has and how it's reached where it's reached. The people that have come back to us said, that was me. And I'm thinking, wow, that's so cool. And I think the biggest thing that I wanted to do is not only have you both here together, which we totally screwed Steven up when he set up the studio for only one of you, but that's okay. He's a good guy. Happy birthday. The neat thing having you both here is that, like I said, we're not going to look back in the rearview mirror. We're going to look forward because where you are now from, you've Let's just start with it. Meredith, you went through a traumatic part in your life, whether it was abuse in some area or whatever. But as a teen, you struggled, as many teens do. And you went through a place which teens shouldn't go through in any aspect, whether it's school or whatever else, and struggles that way. And you did. And here you are now in university, and you're just such an amazing young lady.
Thank
and
you.
the thing you're doing for so many, but you're taking the time to understand so many. So let's just chat a bit about from where you were to where you are now, and how did you get through that?
It's a really good question. I love what you said about, like, no teen should go through that, but yet I haven't met a teen who hasn't gone through something where my jaw just drops for them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's not really one direct way where I got from where I was to where I am, but I think just recognizing that where I was before was at a place where I didn't feel like I had a voice. I didn't feel like the best thing I could use to describe it would be powerlessness and, like, just feeling empty and not knowing even who I was beneath of, like, when you grow up in a bad situation and you become a people pleaser and you do everything for everyone else, when you leave that, you don't know who you are other than who you've needed to be to survive that situation. Mm-hmm. So just, like, understanding that and realizing, how do I show up in my friendships and my relationships, because I don't even know who I really am, and I don't even know how to find my voice. I think it was so hard for me to, like, learn how to say no and learn how to understand what was okay and what wasn't okay. But I think one of the biggest things that helped me get to where I was just looking at it through the lens of, like, my younger self, and looking at each thing I do delicately, caring for that self, and seeing it as, like, when I'm sad and when I get triggered from something, looking at it as a way of, this is showing me a part of my old self, and I'm lucky to understand myself better because of this trigger, and I want to give love to this part of myself that's becoming evident in this moment, instead of being like, why am I still upset over this? Why can't I heal yet? Why can't I feel better yet? And instead being like, why can't I just love myself yet? Mm-hmm. And looking at it in a different way. That's
awesome. We had Brittany Costantos. I think you've met Brittany before. She wrote the book, Not Your Average Teen. And she was the same thing when we had her on. She struggled to find her voice, and she tried so hard just to say what was inside, and she couldn't, because she struggled with it.
Do you know why? Like, sitting here hearing that as a parent, and Meredith's mother, I think that I taught her a little bit of that, because you, as a parent going through your own situation, I didn't recognize what I was experiencing. I was powerless. I taught powerlessness. I also taught them not to trust what they were seeing, not to trust their guts. And then that just created this whole aspect where then she didn't have her voice because she didn't trust herself anymore. Yeah. And that's really comes back to, I guess, at the end of the day, like you said, loving those parts of yourself, but then let's just say self-love overall. And the other part I want to say is, as a mother, taking accountability for my part in we do our best as parents.
Absolutely.
And we know statistically that we do screw up all of our children in one way or another, even though we do our best.
Yeah.
But I'm being vulnerable to that now, and saying those things to her, and talking about, I think just talking about the elephant in the room is what a lot of us don't do, because we have a facade that we need to keep for whatever reason that is. And that may be just for our own selves so we don't fall apart, right? So I think now we're very honest.
But I think partially, too, to answer your question, like, once we left that situation, seeing you relearn how to have a voice, and seeing you teach me those ways was so influential to me. And as much as you want to say, I want to take accountability for the past of showing you powerlessness, you also need to take account and be like, sorry, I mumbled on my words, but what I was saying is take accountability and be like, I maybe showed her powerlessness, but I'm also showing her strength now and how to really dig within and find what I was looking for my whole life. Like, you show me that every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That was you led right into it. I didn't even have to open my lips and ask the question, how does mom jump in there? And I get it. That's exactly it. Like, we try so hard to do everything we need to do to guide our children and things like that. Brian with 2 girls and myself 2 girls as well. You think you're doing the best, but you're not. I mean, you're going to screw up.
There's like you alluded to, there's no book. There's no parenting book, right? There's no guidance. We literally learn this maybe from our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, filtered on down, and then it just gets down to the point where I think it's commendable, and I think you need to give yourself a huge hug in the aspect of, and thank you for making the comment that, you understood where you were at that time and you needed to make a change, and you made that change, and you've stepped up and you've said, yeah, maybe I wasn't there in the right situations when I was in that other environment, but you certainly taught Meredith a beautiful lesson, because look who she is today, and that's on you.
And it comes, thank you for saying that, but it always comes, everything always has 2 sides, right? Just like 2 stories. But going into becoming a single mother, having a broken home now, and going through divorce, it's not where you picture yourself when you're getting married. Not. And I have actually struggled with that being a failure of mine, and yet I hate when I go there, because I think it would be a failure to not honor yourself in the one life you have, to live it to the best of your ability. And even to the point what Meredith just said, and thank you for that, Meredith, is that if we can teach our children the things I didn't know before, like now she sees me learning I didn't have boundaries, or what a good relationship looks like, or, isn't that more valuable in the end?
Sure it is.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
100% it is. And, it's like the life lesson that where there is good, there has to be bad, for that to balance out, for us to appreciate both of those. Where there's darkness, there has to be light. For those reasons, and we forget about that, and we want to get into the, wallowing around of, in pity for ourselves, what we didn't do. But I think there's and you've obviously had a huge awakening, enlightenment in your life, and you knew that you needed to make that change, and you have. So it's on you. And the same goes for you. You've learned what you've learned, and now you've blossomed into this young lady doing speaking engagements and all kinds of things, and empowering those teens around you. That again, we go back to that story thing, that people want to listen, and they're going to listen to this podcast, and I guarantee you there's going to be a mom, there's going to be another young lady of your age is going to sit there and go, okay, I get it. I understand that, and I got to reach out to them.
They always say there's 3 different choices when you've been hurt, in any different way. One is denial, and you hold it within and you never let it out. And then the other is vengeance, where you want to get even and make it even worse. And the other one's forgiveness. And I truly believe forgiveness is sitting right here in the room, like, unbelievable, because you've opened up. You've talked about your story. You've talked about your hurt and pain, but how you're getting through that. You've talked about, no, we're moving on. There's no vengeance. There's nothing. No, we're moving on. That's gone, but it's the forgiveness. But forgiveness is huge. It's so difficult for people, not just forgiving the past, but forgiving ourselves. Because oftentimes we're just a victim, and it was nothing you deserved. But you got to forgive yourself. So I've taken you forgiving yourself. You looked at yourself in the mirror and said, "You're okay."
I definitely did. I talk about this I actually have a sweater that I own, and it says forgive all parts of yourself. And I talk about this with my therapist all the time, like, have gratitude for all the parts of yourself. And a lot of time when you go through trauma, you think back of, I could have done this differently, and I could have done that differently. And that will kill you thinking like that. And I often talk about, and I know this isn't a new way to think, but just like, you did what you could in that situation. And I tell myself that as many times as it takes until I can believe it. Like, the tools I had in the situation, what I understood is normal was all I knew at that time and all the
Right.
knowledge I had at that time. And if I continue to bash myself for that, then I'm going to lose that relationship with myself.
This episode is sponsored by 519 Clothing Company. It was founded in 2017 by Taylor Norris and Tyler Wilson with an initiative to support mental health. 10% of all proceeds are donated to go to the Health Sciences program. All donations go towards hiring staff at the First Episode Mood and Anxiety Program, also known as FEMAP, in order to reduce critical wait times. FEMAP is a donor-funded program helping older teens and young adults aged 16 to 25 with mood and or anxiety symptoms. Check out our online store at 519clothing.com or pop into our store and say hi. 1570 Hyde Park Road, Unit Number 1 in London. Good, yeah.
Some powerful stuff there.
Because, yeah, that's, like I said, those are the three choices we have. And it's, forgiveness is, like I said, it's so difficult for so many. And I mean, in yourself as a mother, you know what, yeah, it's you got to look at yourself too and say, you know what, I thought I did everything I possibly could, as you said. And
I think in the relationship that I was in, I realize now looking back that just like you, I mean, just to your point about thinking that you do everything that you think that you can do. And I always thought that I was anticipating the next move or my kids' needs or my ex-husband's needs at the time. And now one of the things that I've learned from that is that I would never got it right. And I still would never get it right. And that learning lesson, I think, is that we're not supposed to be anticipating. We're supposed to be, letting go and just experiencing, I think. And so I've learned that lesson too. But I think that when I look back on one of the things that I regret, I guess, is sometimes I'm like, why did this happen? And I know that expression, this happened for me, not to me. Things happen for you, not to you. Yeah. So what can we do from what we've experienced? And trauma or anyone's experiences are all relative to them, right? Any two people can experience the same thing and one person be knocked down by it and another person not be bothered by it, right? And so I almost feel embarrassed talking about our situation in a way when there's so many more situations out there that women and children and people experience that are way in the scale of what I would deem to be traumatic, way worse. But anyway, so this is our story. And I think that Meredith and I are sharing our story because we want to make other people feel camaraderie, feel supported. And it helps us, too, to look back and to learn lessons from those experiences so that we can grow and grow in the universe with others.
Yeah, and it's about community, too. I mean, no matter what, you're building a community there, and that's so important. You need to fall back on other people, and, and that community is so important for. So we've tried to do that with our Stand Strong, is build that community, and you're doing that exactly. We're hoping that people will reach out and say, yeah, I'm in the same place.
Yeah.
I was in the same place, or it was even worse, but can you at least be the ear for me so that I got to talk.
Because Meredith and I went out for dinner last night with one of my friends. So she's not 20 and we're in our 50s. And we're having the same conversations about the way people treat people.
Yeah.
And she looked at us during dinner and she was like, I cannot believe that humankind interacts the same way at my age and at our age. The unkindness towards each other, or, and we're not empowering each other. So that's why we're trying to empower other people.
That's what it's all about right there. That's really what it's all about. And that's where we as a society, as a people, as first responders, as, whatever silo you want to create, men, women, whatever, we need to start empowering each other. And we empower each other through stories. We empower each other through what it took, what I did to get me through that. And if that can help you, that's awesome.
And it's not the same thing as, you have to write your gratitudes and you have to meditate and do this and that. Everyone's different.
Right.
And so you need to know that what works for you out of 50 books, it might not work for, so I agree with you. It's empowering you in wherever you're at.
Right.
And I also think, A big thing I've noticed is a lot of people try to speak about their story and they try to reach out for help and they have a bad reaction from whoever they reached out to, and that scares them away, and that makes them want to go silent, and that makes them lose trust in why should I speak out about it, because no one's going to believe me, or I'm going to be silenced, or this is going to happen. So what's the point? And that scares people away. And I hope that even if it's just a few people that are sharing their story, it empowers others to push past maybe the one bad reaction they got, or the multiple bad reactions they got, or the fear they feel, push past that to try again to speak out, because there will be the right person listening. And it's crappy when you don't get that at first, but that's why it's just so important to continue to empower, because it's hard.
And Meredith, that happened with myself when I was working in the air ambulance field, and I found this therapist. Well, I should qualify that. And she found the therapist and got me to start going. I wouldn't have done it on my own because I was a bit of a dumbass. But when I started seeing that therapist and seeing that change in my life, I wanted to do just that. I wanted to reach out to more and help. And I mentioned to one of my colleagues, and the reaction to your point here, the reaction was bad, was really bad. And I tried to qualify by just simply saying, this is what worked for me. I was just trying to reach out and see if it could work for you. And again, the reaction was bad. And then 2 days later, that same person came out to me and said, what was the name of that therapist? And I said, this is where he is. This is where he's located. I said, he's a good guy. Like, he's really helped me. And I said, I haven't got a clue whether he can help you or not. To your point, Sharon, that we don't know.
Yeah.
But I did, and he started going.
But the thing that bothers me as a woman is I have encountered a multitude of women who don't have enough self-love to even put themselves first, to even understand that they're worth that.
Right.
And so that is a whole other issue. Right? And
Absolutely.
you had a wife who presented you with a therapist, and thank goodness you were there at the right time that you were willing to accept that.
Right.
But some people, they don't even have somebody, well, they don't have somebody that cares enough about them, but they don't care enough about themselves.
There you go.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
And I guess today when you guys asked us to speak, if I could say any one thing, it's just that I really wish that if in your silence when you're alone, that you really turn inward, and when it doesn't feel right, it's not right.
100%.
Whatever we're talking about, I'm not labeling, I'm not saying in your marriage or whatever, just in any situation.
Absolutely.
Could be an interaction with your friend.
Well, here's a perfect example. I mean, COVID, you know me, being the extrovert, I was all out there, business, travel, and everything else, and I was strapped to the house for 2 years. You're not going anywhere. And as an extrovert, I had struggled big time. So I had to look inside to find happiness within me, and it was just day by day. I couldn't look at a week ahead of time. It was every morning I got up, and Brian knows I'd sit and I'd go through my Bible, and I would read, and I would find something that would touch my soul and touch my heart, that would make me get through that day and understand, okay, this is going to get me through the day. And COVID did that. I mean, it kicked me down. It kicked a lot of people down. And that was one of the things I was going to ask you, Mare, is, I mean, you've got this incredible social media following, Mind Care with Mare. What was happening during COVID? I mean, with teens and that, were they reaching out for people to talk to? Was there a community of people that were there?
I love that you asked that. I had actually done a webinar. I think my mom was part of it too. It was about how parents can better support youth through COVID. And I basically had collected a bunch of youth stories, including my own, of like how COVID had impacted them and what we need from our parents, because there's a lot of times where our parents think they know us and they want to know us, and then they're offended when they don't know us. But you can't know us because half the time we're still learning ourselves. And when you think you know us, you lose that connection with us because you don't allow us room to be who we want to be. So I think that was really interesting to hear all these youth stories of their struggles. But I did notice just a crazy impact in the community. A lot of people went silent because they getting help online can only be so much, and not seeing people in person. There was just so many increased just like eating disorders and the impacts of social media and everything that it was just more important to highlight youth voices than ever then. But I think every single age group struggled for sure. But yeah, I did have a lot of people reach out to me. And I also think I went through one of the worst times of my life during COVID too. So I also had to reach out to a lot of people.
Finding things changing now that things are opening up and kids are back in school, and is it getting better?
I think I have mixed feelings about that. I think it's getting better, but then I also see the effects of COVID linger, and just like even in university, just like making friends is so different now. People are scared to be themselves, to be confident, and to feel safe around people again, in the sense of like, I don't know if I feel safe enough to show you who I am and what I actually like, and state my true opinion. And so I think people had a lot of relearning to do on how to just exist. And I think it is actually really hard for people. It's really hard for myself. I don't know, like, finding the balance of everything and the groove of everything.
You know, you mentioned that, and the reason I asked is because I'm finding that the same way. I'm finding, here I thought with COVID, families are going to be strapped in their house. They're going to get closer together. They're going to maybe understand each other a little bit, or talk a little bit more. And I find that families have actually kind of fallen apart through COVID, and a lot of them, they're angry. People are freaking angry out there, and it's tough. And you're thinking, man, I really thought this might pull us together. And people are more guarded as to, here's who I am and everything else. I mean, and again, that's why this podcast, we did it. I mean, the first two we did was Brian and I healing for each of ourselves. And that's what we had to do. I mean, my own daughters reached back after they listened to it and said, Dad, we had no idea. But it's one of those things. I mean, we're still learning ourselves, for crying out loud, to tell you. But I think the biggest problem, what we as parents, we tell we want to see our kids succeed, right? So we try to put them in that direction. But in the same breath, I think you've done an amazing job allowing her to be this young lady that she wants to be and find herself. And you've supported her that way. But so many try to put their kids in that place that they don't want to be in. And as parents, there's three of us. You're outnumbered, so you're going to have to agree. I think as parents, we need to stop trying to put them in that place and allow them to be who they want to be. And again, we talk about that with gender right now. I mean, everybody, it's either he, him, she, her, and the alphabet. I don't know, and I apologize for our listeners. I don't.
They, them.
Yeah, they, them, and everything else. But I mean, that's we have to be more understanding. And I mean, like I say, coming out of COVID, people don't seem to be as understanding. They don't want to. I don't know. It's funny. I feel like they're walking on glass.
I heard a really interesting comment about that. Someone said, like a trans activist was talking about how everyone thinks we're looking for understanding, or that like community is looking for understanding. But really what they're looking for is just respect. There's so many things, if you think about, that you encounter in daily life that you don't understand, or you couldn't understand what that feels like to go through. And no matter how much you try to develop that empathy, you'll never truly understand or be able to put your foot in those shoes. So it's just about respect, being like, I may not understand this. I can ask questions, but it's really just like respecting what human rights people lay out in front of you, and just knowing that like you don't need to understand it in order to follow along with it. And I think what you were saying before about like parents trying to guide their kids to succeed, I always am a firm believer that kids can feel this pressure, this want for them to not struggle. Their parents don't want to see them go through mental illness. Their parents don't want to see them just struggle with school. But the reality is they are. And when they feel this pressure that they're disappointing you, or that they're broken and there's something wrong with them, that they're struggling, that's way more harmful than if you just said, it's okay where you're at.
Awesome. That was huge. Take that one in, Mom.
There you go,
You're
Mom.
be proud of that.
Yeah.
Well, I would say for some reason, I had that philosophy. I learned so much from all my children, more than anyone ever has taught me than
Isn't that
listening to
I've
them.
said that the same thing several times. I mean, you look where we grew up and the environment we were in, and I think my kids have taught me far more than I ever learned through school, or I learned through, and nothing against my parents. I mean, they were good, hardworking people, and I just learned to have good, hardworking ethics. But you're right. Our kids have taught us so much.
And just like you talked about before with whatever people experience, it depends whether you become a victim or, I'm going to say, a victor out of it, right? And for Meredith and for myself, we chose to embrace life and continue to grow. I was in a relationship where change was bad, and I was like, I've changed? I haven't changed. I haven't changed? No, I haven't changed. And now I realize, wow, if you don't change, that's the problem, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So it was an epiphany.
I wanted to ask each of you individually, because I did this talk, I don't know, it was back a couple of years ago to a group of firefighters. And at the end of the talk that I did, they said, talk was fantastic, really loved it, wish you had spent more time on how you got to a better place, what you did. So if I can ask you guys individually and together, what did you do? How did you get yourselves back to a better place?
You want to go first?
Well, I guess honestly, it was when I left my home and started over, I didn't have a plan. It was not premeditated. It just had to happen one day. And so, in all honesty, that's why I thanked Michael at the beginning, because he introduced me to the people that I guess put me on the path to change. And I would say that I really did the hard work of looking inward first. And I always said to Meredith when she was going through her journey too, and I had all my kids struggled in one way or another, and you see the tick box of they need to write in their gratitudes, and you need to do the meditation, and even to the point of checking in with how are you feeling on a 1 to 10 scale, and no one ever did that. Right. Yeah. So I was saying, and I wanted to do that for myself too, and if I'm being honest, I didn't do that. So I did little things. One of the things that I did just to get it out of me was I wrote my story as it was, everything about it. And then I wrote my story as, I guess, the outcome, because, now I have to go through a divorce and how that's all going to go and everything. So I wrote what it will look like, let's say 5-6 years in the future, with all that done.
Nice.
And where that would be. And then both of those pieces of paper got put in a drawer and it purged out of me. That was the first thing I did. And then from there, I just look at every single thing that happens to me and I say, thank you for that. And, we'll see where this takes me. Yeah. And I look for the good out of all of it instead of wallowing, because I will say that something comes every single day that could knock me over and I just don't let it. Meredith asked me that yesterday and she said, how do you do it? And maybe that's just my constitution, but I just have love. And at the end of every day, I'm grateful for everything that came my way. Good. And that's it.
So I know through my spiritual healer, that's what this conversation went right there. Just in the aspect of it's happening to you for a reason. It's not for you to be angry with. It's maybe not for you to even to understand right now. It is for you to just go, okay, I understand, but there's a lesson here.
Yeah, like you said,
whatever that lesson is.
I have a really weird connection with an animal, a blue heron, and all my kids know it. And every time that blue heron comes, it's like all of these things that keep happening. Yeah. The lessons, I haven't learned it yet, right? So I'm like, okay, I get it. I haven't learned what I need to learn, even if I don't know it. And then you look up, and there's the heron, and I say to him, I know.
But like awesome. You always say, we're always going through something, but we're not going through something right now. We're going through it, and we got to listen while we're going through it because there's something brilliant on the other side. We're always learning, so we're going through something. Yeah, and that's
how about
awesome.
you, Mary?
I love what you said, Mom. It's been awesome to watch this journey for you and just learn so many things. But I agree, it's hard to really pinpoint. But I think the beginning was just me allowing myself to feel. And I think a big thing I struggled with was I just wanted everybody else to notice that I wasn't okay. But who I really needed to notice was myself. I was looking for people to tell me this external validation. And what I really needed was to hear it from myself. And I really needed to hear from myself that it's okay. And to just, so what I started doing was writing like letters to myself, like letters of compassion, letters of love, and just being like, dear Meredith, or dear younger Meredith, like this is, and just kind of working with what I needed to hear in that day and reading those and feeling those and crying about those and just like giving myself what I was looking for everywhere else. That allowing myself to feel, and then also just like, I think realizing that I was more than like what I've been through in a way, and just like connecting with more of like that spiritual aspect in that internal world, when you meditate and you feel your actual like soul underneath all of your ego and all of that, connecting with that was life-changing for me, because I realized, all of these things have happened to me but there's still me underneath it. A big thing for me after I went through trauma was like, I didn't know how to laugh. Like, I just was serious and I didn't know where that joy went. And realizing that that was still within me and that I was able to reconnect with that no matter how hard or how many different ways I had to try to do that, realizing that that was still there and it wasn't gone, it was just lost, was life-changing as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I did the same thing years ago. I did a video of myself, my future self, and it was a video of myself talking to myself back in where I was at that point, saying how I got through it and how you struggled. And I still have that video. It's actually, I got it sealed to open up one on my 65th birthday to see if I actually got where I said I was going to be. But it was a powerful video. And I mean, it was really neat to be able to do that for yourself. And I agree. People need to do that. You need to write to yourself. A lot of journaling. Well, again, we all find different ways, as you mentioned earlier. That's what you love to do. I myself love to journal and talking to myself in the morning by putting notes together. It's so good. But I like the idea. I did the video. And as you talked about, you put those 2 notes, you put them away. I used to do the same thing. And it's maybe something we learned from some of the connections that we both had. I wrote down all those things that that were bothering me, holding me back. And I put them in the fire pit and I burned them and I watched them burn and got rid of those. And they were no longer part of my past. They were no longer part of me moving forward. They weren't part of my story anymore. I'm a new story. And
but
it all starts.
It ruminates though, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think the thing is even if you don't think you're a writer, it's a good way to just get it out, right?
And it's funny, I have a very good friend of mine. She just started by journaling now, and it's a long story. But she just said, I got to start journaling. My partner was journaling, and he had recently passed away. So she struggled and needed to journal. And I said, don't just find a journal. The journal will talk to you. And she says, come on. She thought I was losing my mind, right? She came back from chapters that day and she goes, I found a journal that it spoke to me when I got there. I said, what else? She said, and then I found this pen. She says, I didn't know pen was so important. I said, what was the paper like? I couldn't believe the paper. It was the best linen I've ever written on. I said, now you love to write. She goes, yeah. She says, I didn't realize. But it's one of those things. It's not just writing. It's finding something that you connect with and it touches your heart. It's so cool.
Awesome.
That was good, Brian.
Time's flowing by again. Like it just goes. Because
we always talk about what's next and you led up to, how you got where you are. But what's next? What's next for you two crazy ladies? What's next? You're part of, university. Are you part of the jack.org program too as well?
I am, yeah.
Awesome. So that's back up and running. And that's at what university?
That one's actually there's a Wilmot Waterloo chapter.
Okay.
It's not affiliated with that university, but
cool.
It's really fun. I'm working on my second poetry book, so that's coming out soon, hopefully. Other than that, I think just learning. I love doing all these speaking events and I love sharing my story, but also just learning how to be a kid at the same time and living life and trying to have fun again.
Cool.
So,
Mom?
Yeah.
What's next? I have many, many things on the go, but I think the most important thing is to choose me every single day and to stay strong in that. And I think of that in relation to being a role model for my kids. So that keeps me straight. Awesome. No, I just mean being authentic.
Yeah. No, that's so good.
Good for you guys.
Meredith, even as we get older, we're still learning who we really are and what we can give back. And that's pretty cool. So thanks. There's definitely somebody's going to reach out. We're going to get your Instagram contacts that we can put down on a page as well so people can reach out to you. Love to have you back. At some point when, and you share again with, what's happening out there because you're in contact and in touch with the young generation, which we so much want to bring into a community to help each other and grow with each other. And we just love hanging out with Mom.
I get to come along with my incredible daughter. So thank you guys.
No, that's not true. You're also incredible.
Yes, absolutely. Brian, thanks again for hanging out with me.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for being in the studio.
Thank you for having us.
At Porchlight Studios with Mr. Stephen Ryan in the background.
Who?
Brian, Stephen,
okay.
Ryan. There's way too many Stevens here.
Yeah,
anyway,
there we go.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Okay.
Peace.
Thank you.
Peace
Bye.
out.
Thank you.
We're out of here.